The Uluru Statement from the Heart that's constantly referenced to justify the creation of an Indigenous voice to the Parliament is normally thought to be just one page. At least that's what most Australians think it is, in part because that's what the Prime Minister has repeatedly told them.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart, I'd encourage people to read. It'll take you about 2 minutes. You can fit it on one A4 page. That's the request. And to read the words that are there in the referendum going forward that are very clear as well.
Here he is again on the one-pager.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart does speak to our hearts. A short document, long in the making. It is a masterclass in spare eloquence. I keep a copy of it on the wall of my office in Parliament House, and there isn't a day that I don't look up to it. Sometimes I focus on a couple of lines, but often I read it right through. If you haven't, I do recommend that you do. Like the Gettysburg Address, it only requires a few minutes. It literally fits on one A4 page.
And again,
the beautiful statement, frankly, that can be fitted on one A4 page, and I'd encourage your listeners to have a read of that.
Only that's not true. It's a lie. The Uluru Statement from the Heart is not a one-page document. It's actually 26 pages in all, and we only know that because the government's been forced to release the full document under Freedom of Information, FOI. And it's the whole 26 pages of the Uluru Statement from the Heart that every Australian should read, not the PM's sanitised one-pager, before they cast their vote in the upcoming referendum. And here's why. Because the whole tenor of the full Statement from the Heart and of the 13 meetings leading up to it, as revealed in these official documents, again available under FOI only, is of anger, grievance, separatism, the need to undo as far as possible the last 240 years of Australian history. And it's this complete statement, all 26 pages, that the Prime Minister has declared time and time again that his government is committed to implementing in full.
And on behalf of the Australian Labor Party, I commit to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. And I recommit on behalf of the government that I proudly lead to the implementation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. And I'm proud to lead a government that's committed to implementing the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full.
Dozens and dozens of times he's made that commitment. And what's more, we also know this week that implementing the Uluru Statement, Voice, Truth, Treaty in full will form part of Labor's official party platform coming out of the National Conference in a couple of weeks' time. So what's this until now secret statement got to say? Now it states, and I quote, "The invasion that started in Botany Bay is the origin of the fundamental grievance between the old and new Australians. This is the time, it says, of the frontier wars, when massacres, disease and poison decimated First Nations, even as they fought a guerrilla war of resistance. The Tasmanian genocide and the Black War, waged by the colonists, reveals the truth about this evil time. By making agreements at the highest level, the negotiation process with the Australian government allows First Nations to express our sovereignty." Now, agreements at the highest level, a negotiation process, it says, with the Australian government on a treaty. Now, that's directly at odds, isn't it, with what the Prime Minister said on ABC Radio this week.
If the voice passes, will you move to trying to negotiate a treaty or treaties?
No, Patricia, because that's occurring with the states. So
you're saying the Commonwealth will never have a role with treaties?
Right now. No, Patricia. What I'm saying is that what the No campaign want to do is to focus on everything that's not happening and nothing that is.
Now, that's not right, is it? Because the Uluru Statement, he says he'll implement it in full. Well, it demands treaties with the Australian government, his government, and he knows it. Here is Anthony Albanese's opposition leader admitting this very fact.
And truth must be followed by a Makarrata Commission. Makarrata is about conflict resolution, justice and, crucially, self-determination. It's a path to national treaty that acknowledges the pre-existing rights of people in a land where sovereignty was never ceded, that acknowledges that we are on what is Aboriginal land, always was, always will be.
And contrary to the PM's current poll-panicked claim that the Voice is not about treaties, these official documents confirm that treaties indeed are the whole point of the Uluru Statement. The full Uluru Statement document, hidden from voters until now, says in black and white that, quote, Makarrata is another word for treaty or agreement making, and it is the culmination of our agenda. So let's be very, very clear here. The Voice is just the start. The Voice is just the beginning. And in the words of the Uluru document itself, treaties between Indigenous Australians and the rest of us are the end point, the culmination. Critically, the full Uluru Statement also proposes a whole series of steps, including what they call a roadmap, to establish a Treaties Commission, this Makarrata Commission. Now, the intention is for the Makarrata Commission to act as an umpire sitting above the Parliament and the Executive Government in negotiations with the Voice and individual First Nations. Now, this is in the documents on page 26. It also exposes what's happening now by stealth, where it says the Parliament would begin work establishing the Commission even before legislating the Voice. That's on page 23. And we know this is happening because the Albanese government has already allocated over $5 million to do this in the budget. They've already spent around $900,000 to date. And yet on every day this week, the Indigenous Minister, Linda Burney, has refused to answer any questions in the Parliament about the Makarrata Commission or where this money has been spent to date. But that's not the worst of it. That's not the end of the Albanese government's bad faith by keeping these documents from voters and pretending that the Uluru Statement was a much more benign one-pager. The full 26 pages of the Uluru Statement also set out in granular detail things such as the Voice being, and I quote, accommodated on an appropriate site within the parliamentary circle in Canberra. It says that it must also be supported by a sufficient and guaranteed budget with access to its own independent secretariat, experts and lawyers. That's all on page 22 of the until now secret documents. And this marries up with what I've been told by people who still talk to me in the public service out of Canberra, that a lot of them are involved in reviewing the plans of the Parliament House building, working out where they'll locate this new Voice, where they'll build the Voice a chamber of its own. Like the House, like the Senate, there'll be a chamber for the Voice, and where all these new Voice members will be accommodated. The new officers, the staffers and the salaries, which I'm told must be at least equivalent to elected MPs. Talk about a third chamber. That's what Malcolm Turnbull once very aptly described the Voice as. But here is the worst of what the full Uluru Statement from the Heart proposes. Reparations. Compensation paid by taxpayers, including options such as a financial settlement based on a percentage of Australia's GDP. Now let's repeat that. It's a quote, such as seeking a percentage of GDP, the resolution of land, water and resources issues. Now, if in any doubt about the radical nature of the changes sought by activists behind this voice, you can thumb through the 86 pages of lead-up deliberations that preceded the full 26 pages of the Statement of the Heart that is now available for you at home on the Sky News website. So be in no doubt that if the voice gets up, there will soon be two classes of Australians. Those with ancestry extending back tens of thousands of years, increasingly consumed with a sense of grievance and entitlement, even though modern Australia is almost entirely colourblind. And then those whose ancestry in this country goes back no further than 1788, who will be expected to pay compensation for the privilege of living in the nation that they and their ancestors have helped create. And this is all there in the documents, now available, whatever smokescreen the PM and other Yes campaigners want to try and throw up. As I said in the Australian newspaper today, the whole point of the voice is to transform forever the least racist country on earth. Please read the full 26-page Uluru Statement, now on the Sky News website, the full statement and all those other documents, if you like, that those pushing for the voice hoped you would never, ever see.